Welcome into the Cougar Cast here at the Kokomo Post Sports. I am your host, Jay Stevens, and this is the place to get all the information on what's going on at the IU Kokomo Athletic Department. And joining us for the first time in a long time is Grant Patterson. He is the Sports Information Coordinator at IUK. Grant, you've been away, you've been out of the state, but I'm glad you're back here on the show.
Yeah, I've been traveling. It's been almost a month, but no better place to be. I'm glad to be back here.
How was that trip to Iowa last week with the volleyball team?
Yeah, the trip to Iowa was awesome. It was a first-time experience for me. Never been to the final site of an NAIA national championship, and our volleyball team represented IU Kokomo so well, ranked 15th in the country heading into a pool with the number 23 and number 2 team. They handled their business against the number 23 team, Oklahoma Wesleyan, and had a 2-1 lead against number 2 Indiana Wesleyan with a chance to advance to the quarterfinals. But Indiana Wesleyan really dug up their best game and really found their rhythm in the 4th and 5th sets and held us off. But nothing to hang our heads about. That program put us on the map, and I feel like we're more well-respected now at the national level, at the NAIA level, than we ever have been. So nothing to hang their heads about. It was a great week, and I'm excited to see what this team can accomplish in the future with a lot of returning players.
We got to hear last week from Brent Martin, the assistant AD at IUK, about the volleyball team's play in pool play. Grant was there, and it was a memorable season. I saw that on social media and some of the recaps that are written up on the website. And that's just from my standpoint, and that was the same thing in the article. How would you describe the season as a whole that the volleyball team had this year?
Yeah, it was, I won't say miraculous, because I knew that with the coaching staff that Heather has and the student athletes that she has to lead her squad, I knew that they were capable of a season like this. But to go 34-4 is the record they end up with, and a 19-0 River State's conference record really never came close to a conference loss. So won the River State's conference regular season and postseason, and then just our second ever win, not in the NAIA tournament, but our second ever win at the NAIA tournament final site. So to get that and give these girls some experience, we returned a bevy of players that played key roles on this year's team, and I think that suits us well for the future.
Is that something that next year, I don't know if Heather Hayes has already been talking internally about expectations for next year's team, but with the players that are coming back to the team next year that were on this very successful volleyball team, are the expectations more of what we got this year?
Yeah, I would expect going into next year, you return both of your setters, just lose a couple pieces like Audrey Strasma, Maya Shively, Olivia Smith, definitely players that made impacts, as well as 3 others, including Tori Wilkinson and Kelsey Hammond. But you know that these girls got here and felt this again for the first time in some of their careers. And for the seniors this year that left, yes, they do lose a lot of experience, but I would say I haven't talked expectations with you yet, but they expect to be in Iowa next year competing in the pool play after an opening round win again, just like this year.
From a team in volleyball that was competing last week in the national tournament to the newest sport at IUK, esports, who is playing in a championship on Thursday. This is something that Grant mentioned to me before the show, and I'm excited. I always say excited. That's something that I said when we first heard about esports, but then they're really, really successful in their first year as a sport at IUK. And Grant, I hear there's a championship on Thursday.
Yeah, so Coach Nick Lazy's Overwatch team, it's one of the 3 titles they play. The Overwatch squad is competing against Southern Illinois, the Salukis of Southern Illinois, Thursday evening. So they just beat a Missouri club team. That is the Division I Missouri, just a club team within campus. They beat them 4-2, a little reverse sweep in a best-of-7 series. So they're going to battle. It'll be Cougars versus Salukis for a NECC Great Lakes Conference Navigator Division Championship in the first year of the program. What else can you ask for?
And what happens if they end up winning that? What's the next step?
So I'm honestly not sure if there's another step like within the postseason, since this is just the conference postseason. Do they turn into a bigger postseason such as the NAI? Well, since esports is not an NAI sport, I know there won't be an NAI postseason, so I believe this is it. But hey, new experience for me, so we'll find out as we go.
A little backwards last week to this week, and then let's go back to last weekend, Grant. The indoor track and field season for both men and women started off last week, went down to Indianapolis, to University of Indianapolis, and I went back and I write stuff down all the time. I wrote down the people that finished in the top 10, and I'm like, oh, there's a first place here, a first place here, a first place here, a third place, a second place. I'm like, wow, they are really successful in their first indoor track and field meet of the season.
Yeah, not only were they successful, but I mean, not even a full squad, just coming off distance season, and a few of our student athletes were competing in the marathon in California, so pretty much just sprinters, throwers, and jumpers, a few distance runners sprinkled in there, but to go and compete in UIndy, the host school, they're Division II. So a majority of the schools we were competing against were Division IIs. So that just is as you said, a lot of high finishes, strong starts for our Cougars, including a lot of freshmen who had a big impact, such as Hayden Nelson from Mississippi. I know the sky is the limit for him. And sprints coach Nolan Talley is super excited to see his ceiling and see him reach his peak.
Later in today's show, we're going to hear from Shamaria Walker of the women's basketball team at IUK and to hear what this season means for her and some of her expectations and thoughts about how the season has gone so far. Last week, there was conference play open for both men and women. And unfortunately, in a really close margin, there was a loss by both men and women. What can we kind of recap about those two games?
Yeah, I thought it was a tale of two games, but both teams had a few things that they can learn from, and I think both coaching staffs would agree that we need to hit free throws at a higher clip. But that was a big deal for us. If we can have 3 or 4 points back at the end of the game, both games I think we lost by just 2. I might be wrong, but I know it was a minimal margin. So free throws are a big deal, but for the women's team, it's a little bit of a different story than the men's team. The women's team battled greatly and had a lead for most of the game, and nothing to hang their heads about. Going in, I think we're 3-3 now, but at 500, so nothing to hang our heads about. Dropping down to 0-1 in River State's conference play, and then the men's team came in at 8-0, had a bit of a setback, but it's still way early in the River State's conference season. Just one game in, and got a chance to right the ship this Saturday against a team that our men's team just battled in the River State's conference championship game last year. So for both teams this weekend at IU Southeast, it's a chance to get back on the right track, and you win this weekend at IU Southeast, and you're 1-1 in conference play, 500.
You know, I love those times when there are double headers in high school, boys and girls. There's actually one this weekend. I believe Eastern and Tri-Central is a boys and girls doubleheader. And then also on Saturday, there's a men's and women's doubleheader down at IU Southeast. I didn't want to say, wait, is IU Southeast this week?
Yep, Southeast.
Okay, I looked at my paper, said East, and I was like, wait, that's a wrong game. That was a wrong time period. But I like the times when you can do both. Get men and women and college or even high school. And that's a good thing for people in Kokomo. If they want to drive down south, go ahead and do it. I would highly encourage it to check out the talented men and women at IUK on the basketball court, because they'll definitely need your support when they play this game on Saturday.
Yeah, I completely agree. As I said, the men's team is a very talented group at IU Southeast. They just had the National Player of the Week this week. I just saw that in my email. And the women's team, as long as their coaching staff is the same, their coach has been there a long time, and they've been a successful program over the years. So, like I said, big chance for our teams to get a road win.
What are some things you would like to highlight about the women's basketball team at the early point of the season?
Yeah, so as we expected, we knew Anna Kaiser would be a big she would play a key role in the team's success this year. But Shamaria Walker, a junior guard from Lawrence North, as we'll have her on the show in the next few minutes. But she's really stepped up, had, I think, 22 points in the road game at IU East, and that to be consistent would be key for the ladies. And I think that if they can get that consistency out of more than just one or two players, then I think we'll see some success this year in River State's conference play.
What about the men? I know and women's as well coming up later, but what about the men as well? Going into that game and the first conference game, undefeated 8-0 was great. But even that one loss, there are things you could learn from that. What would you maybe highlight about that team?
Definitely things we can learn from it. I'd say the biggest thing maybe taking care of the ball.
Yeah.
That'll get us a long way. We play an up-and-down game, and Coach Eric Eckelbarger's squad, a gritty, defensive-minded team, normally get a lot of their points via fast break or in the paint, and that's no different with this year's team. I think shots just struggle to go in, and you'll have that in a game of basketball every once in a while. So, like I said, another great chance this weekend against Jacoby Hendricks and the team that won the River States last year. So a good early season test in the River States Conference, but that just means you'll have more winnable games at some point later on in the season. So right the ship here this Saturday.
One thing I want to do with Grant, I say it all the time, he's amazing. His brain works so well with the numbers, the dates, the stats. We understand there are no home basketball games this week at IUK. When are the next home games for both men and women?
Yeah, so only 3 home games the whole month of December, but 2 of these will be next week. Both our men and women's basketball teams will host Midway. It's first women's basketball. I believe it's a 5:30 start next Tuesday in the Student Activities and Events Center, so 5 days from this airing, and they'll have a chance to battle a Midway squad that we were competitive with last year. I thought we could have had 2 wins against that Midway squad last year, so I'm excited to see what we'll be able to do against these Eagles next Tuesday. And then our men's team will host the Eagles, a new coaching staff for both of these Midway squads. So should be a different team, a little bit of a different dynamic from each of the squads, but I'm interested to see what we can do, and I think both teams can pull out wins.
What are some last comments you have about anything going on inside the athletic department right now?
Yeah, most importantly, all of our fall sports have now wrapped up with the end of volleyball. So completely moved on to winter sports here, and at IUK, it's pretty much esports will finish up. They play pretty much every season, so we don't attach them to one season. But our men and women's basketball are in full swing, starting their second game in River State's conference play. They'll have a couple non-conference games over Christmas break, but other than that. Make sure you check IUKCougars.com out for the esports update and see what they are able to do. You can follow them on Twitch too. So follow our social medias, and then our final winter sports team, indoor track and field.
Coming up next, Shamaria Walker, a junior on the women's basketball team at IUK, will be joining us to discuss some things going on with the women's basketball team so far this season. As the Cougar Cast rolls on, I'd like to welcome into the show a junior on the women's basketball team at IUK, Miss Shamaria Walker. Shamaria, welcome to the show.
Yep. Good to be here.
I was going back and looking at some things on your bio and some stats and some numbers, and I came across this one that was very, very interesting. I know athletes and numbers and the number they have in their jersey, they're very picky about it. If they can choose it, they will get one that fits them the best. You were number 31, jersey number 31, as a freshman. Your sophomore year, you switched to number 1, and you stuck with that this year as well. Why that switch on the numbers on the jersey?
It was kind of a spur of a moment thing. Coming in my freshman year, I was number 30 in high school. 31 is as close as I could get to number 30. And then we had a senior graduate that had number 1. So I just took that jersey number, and I pretty much liked it.
Is there anything special about that number since you switched to it?
I definitely will say I'm playing much better with it. So, yeah, I might have some good juju with the number 1 jersey.
Maybe. I thought the number 31 from your freshman year had a tie to Reggie Miller, but maybe not. I mean, I understand things happen, but no, I understand if you switch to a number and you're playing well, I understand why you want to stick with it.
Absolutely.
So I was looking, and I always try to figure out high school, where the athlete is played high school and where they're from. You went to Lawrence North. I'm a graduate of Lawrence Central High School down in Indianapolis. It's about an hour away from the high school you played basketball at. Why did you decide to come play at IUK?
IUK definitely felt like home when I came to visit. I was very huge on equity and inclusion. And on my visit, IUK really embodied that. As well as feeling represented on the basketball team. An hour away from home, being able to get support from family members is a big thing. And then obviously my major and things like that, health science major and IU, they go together well, pretty good. So all of those things put together and kind of pushing me on an academic standpoint and athletically, I really thought this was a great home for me, and I was right.
What kind of stood out in the equity and inclusion part that stuck out to you on your visit?
All of the different ways for you to feel represented. I know Black Student Union was a big thing for me, as well as looking at the makeup of other of their sports teams. You could tell representation. Everybody coming from different backgrounds and being able to mesh together well. I really liked the aspect of that when it came to the institution.
You know, I've talked to numerous athletes at IUK. They've all said they feel at home. They feel comfortable when they made that decision, which is huge. But then some other people highlight different aspects, equity and inclusion being one of them, but also the camaraderie and the morale of the team that they're trying to be a part of in the future kind of stuck out with them as well, which kind of swayed their decision on going to IUK. What about the women's basketball team when you came to visit or with your talks with the coach that kind of stuck out and made an impact on you when trying to decide what college you wanted to play at?
I'm a very lively and goofy person, so meeting a lot of people with that personality was really important to me, as well as I came from a high school that really embodied that and making it a family-oriented team. So meeting the girls and seeing that that's how they operate was a very big thing for me because I know that's a big part of being successful.
It is. You go back to the high school. Your junior year of high school, you ended up losing in the state championship to Hamilton Southeastern. The very next year, ended up winning the state championship. I believe that was against Northwestern. You won in 2020. What was that moment like? And not so much the moment of winning the state championship. What was the mindset of the team going from that loss to Hamilton Southeastern to kind of in the offseason getting your minds right and sticking to the goal of winning a state championship the next year?
Ironically, there was no doubt in our mind that we would go and get it the next year. I think I was a sophomore when we lost to HSE, and just seeing how heartbroken we were and how the next few weeks after we kind of took a rest that we were really, really ready to get back at it. I knew that we were absolutely going to go get it that next year. We had some great leadership, great coaching staff, again, family-oriented, so we knew to stick together and trust the work and get in the gym.
You know, I watched that game against HSC was it sophomore year?
Yes.
I believe my dad and I watched that game, and I'm sitting there. I'm an LC guy. I don't normally root for LN, but I was rooting for LN in that moment. And I know the success that the coach had there on the girls' side, now the boys' coach at LN. And I'm sitting here thinking, man, I hope they win. I hope they win. And then to see you guys do that the very next year, win the state championship, that's huge. What lessons did you learn from that experience that kind of translated to the kind of player you are right now?
Definitely the art in being a true competitor. Northwestern and HSE both had girls that are now gone on to big D1 schools. So knowing to not take a rep off and be a competitor and trusting your teammates for sure, your coaching staff, and learn how to ride the waves. That's a big thing in basketball. We weren't going to be on a high the entire time, especially on that big of a stage. So really learning how to come out of those low times and make something happen was something that I've definitely taken and kind of used now on our previous seasons.
I always hear basketball players discuss the difference between playing in a high school gym, the size of it, and even in Indiana. It's kind of a luxury being able to play in such large gyms at times, but nothing compares to Gainbridge Fieldhouse and how big and massive that building is. Was it different for you to play in that big of an arena, especially in the biggest game of the year?
Oh, absolutely. I'm normally not a sweater at the beginning of the game. Those bright lights, it was ridiculous. Emotions on a high in the court. It feels a bit bigger. So even playing, I was winded a lot quicker than I usually would be if we were playing at home in our home gym. So it's definitely a big thing, but also feeling the support of your entire community and knowing that your family's there to watch you and you've got your team and your coaching staff on your side and ready to see you bring home a big one. That definitely helped with the nervousness.
Oh, I bet. I've talked to a few. I've actually had the privilege to play play in there once, a couple pickup games, and I'm like, no, on a regular court, even if it's bigger, NBA regular size, I'm not as winded as I am currently there. But it's interesting to hear you in that moment playing in that game, winded, sweating a little bit, just those things that kind of stuck out. What else stood out from that memorable season in 2020?
I was definitely be seeing the success of the older girls. It was a little different dynamic for us because they were more experienced and the rest of us were younger. But seeing the success of the team, even after the season, just seeing them get theirs and what was meant for them, it was definitely big. And kind of getting some gems and stuff passed down from them and understanding the game, basketball IQ, knowing how to lead. Because it was big for us going into my senior season. We kind of left, half our team left and went on and graduated. So being able to apply some of those things that I was taught from the older girls.
Let's fast forward a few years to this year at IUK. You mentioned being winded because of the court you're playing on at the state championship. What were some things the team did in preseason conditioning to prepare for the season?
Oh, geez. Well, we did a lot of running, as you can imagine. We did a lot of speed and agility things. We had some girls coming back from injuries and things like that, so we made sure we were taking care of our bodies with recovery. We hit the weights pretty hard. A lot of up and down stuff. I know we had some new girls coming in between injuries and freshmen coming in, so we had a lot of up and down and scrimmaging to make sure we get acclimated and understand who we are as players, to get a little view on that. And then we've had a series of assessments to make sure that we were hitting those marks so that when the season comes, we were hitting those numbers that we wanted to ensure that we had a successful season.
Have you guys, or maybe even you specifically, kind of hit those marks early in the year that were set prior to the start of the season?
Oh, yeah, it's definitely good to see it on the other side now. At the beginning, we were looking at the assessment numbers and like, there's no way I can hit these numbers. This is practically impossible. But seeing the growth as players and even as a team, because of some of those assessments were a team thing, we're starting to hit those numbers, and you're starting to see the positive correlation between hitting those assessment numbers and how we're playing as a team.
How do you think the team has played so far this year?
I am extremely happy with the way that this team has started to turn things around for sure. although, you know, we were 500 as a team, 3-3. That is way better than what we had done in previous years.
Yeah.
Last year, I think we only won 3 games on the season. So to get 3 of the 6 early, you can clearly tell that there's been a change in team morale, the way we're playing, believing in each other, culture all around. This team is really starting to put things together.
What do you think is the difference from 3 wins last year to winning 3 of your first 6 games this year?
I definitely think it's the commitment coming from all of the girls, from freshmen on up to grad students. We're really all committed to being there for each other, and that's always where it starts as a team and being successful. And that's translating on the court. We take the time to learn each other. We're always getting in the gym, making sure we're spending time so that we know how each other play and things like that. So it's definitely been a big culture change, which I think has been a huge shift in the way we play because we've always had the skill set. It was always trying to get everything going at the same time.
So I went back and talked about numbers a little bit earlier. Mm-hmm. You had 22 points against IU East on 11 of 16 shooting from the field. And I want to see, like, is it a 3-point shot that's going up? And I don't think you've hit a 3-pointer this year at all. What was clicking in that game? Because a lot of guys now, or even girls now, will play basketball and they're shooting maybe 3, maybe 4 threes a game. Not making a 3, getting it done, maybe closer to the basket. I didn't see the game, so I don't know if it was like mid-range jumpers, a little bit longer twos. I don't know exactly how the points happened, but 22 points, what clicked in that game?
What really clicked is it's a big kudos to my teammates. They cut very, very well starting at the beginning of the game. And as someone who is normally a driver, when you have your teammates cutting well and drawing attention to the paint, it makes it very easy for you to see openings. And that's where most of my points came from was driving to the basket. So huge thanks to them for running the offense and getting the paint open. But even then, being able to get in, draw some defenders and kick it out to girls who I know will knock it down, that was definitely a big thing that game.
You know, that chemistry you speak of and running the offense, that could help the team that only won 3 games last year, that's won 3 of the first 6, win maybe 10-plus games this year by simply just doing things that they're being asked to do by the coach. Do you think that some of the success on offense and the players running the offense, maybe to perfection at times, is going to be something that will lead to more success? Well, let me ask this. Do you think that was expected of your teammates to run the offense as well as they did that game?
Practicing with the girls, I definitely could tell that things were starting to click.
Okay.
So it's starting to be more expected of them. We're getting a more of a hang of the offense that we're running. Obviously, it's early in the season, so kind of understanding what everybody is good at.
Yeah.
It isn't, and trying to mold that to the offense. That's why it really started to click last game.
What are some, last thing for you, what are some expectations you have for yourself throughout the rest of the season?
To definitely be a leader all around. I'm kind of moving in more offensively to be a threat, but I've always been a gritty player when it comes to defense. So being able to do those things on both ends and kind of be a silent action leader for my team, push them always. I think those are 2 of the big things on my mind right now is making sure I'm leading all of us to the right path.
I'd like to appreciate Shamaria Walker for coming on the show, a part of the women's basketball team at IUK, and also for Grant Patterson, the sports information coordinator at IUK, for coming on the show as well. This has been the Cougar Cast. We'll see you next time.